Good evening, everyone, and happy Thursday. I had to think about that one for a second. I am Maya Engel live in the digital studio. Thanks so much for joining us on UpNorthLive Unscripted at 6:30. And it's been a beautiful Thursday. So for more on the weather, let's bring in our meteorologist, Joe. And Joe, why not just continue this beautiful weather right into our Friday and into the weekend, right?
I'm with you though on like what day it is. It's just one of those it feels like that kind of a week, doesn't it?
Yes, but honestly, every kind of feels like that for me. I'm always
But
a
you were right. It is Thursday.
little.
Yeah, and a nice day today. And you know what? Why not carry over that nice weather?
Yeah.
Our big friend high pressure is here, and it's going to stick around for a few days. So we'll deal with that. We're also going to see a warm up coming up, Maya. So we'll take a look a little later in the show at just how warm it's going to get, and also when we may get a little more rain too.
All right.
When that's next on the horizon. So I'll be back with that a little later.
Awesome. We'll see you in a bit, Joe. But for now, let's start off with our question of the day. That is, has your family or someone you know lost someone to a drug overdose? As of right now, 72% of people have voted yes, 28% have voted no. You can scan that QR code on your screen right now to vote. And I was just looking at some of the comments on our Facebook post with this question, and a lot of people are just commenting yes. Quite a few people are. Ryan commented, yes, unfortunately, 3 close friends. So this is due to the fact that, according to the latest data from the state, there have been 4 times as many overdose deaths in Michigan compared to 28 years ago. So last year, at least 2,800 Michiganders died from overdose, and that number is actually probably a little low. So this afternoon, we had the opportunity to sit down with a member of the Drug Enforcement Administration, which is tasked with a job that is constantly evolving, and often their success can mean the difference between life and death. So I'm going to put down our question of the day. We will come back to that in a little bit. Mark Chalette worked on this story today, so I'm going to share his story with you, and then we're going to check in with Mark for a little more on his story.
Synthetics, as long as you have the chemicals, you can continue to make the drugs. And the synthetic that we're most concerned about is fentanyl.
Brian McNeil, working out of the Detroit division of the Drug Enforcement Administration, knows well the challenges of trying to stay ahead and slow the influx of illegal drugs into our country and into our state.
Those drugs are following the same routes that they followed for years, whether it was cocaine, whether it was heroin, it's following the same routes. And it's run like a business. It's a hub and spoke operation where the hub might be Chicago or the hub might be Detroit. And from there, using highways, using bus routes or what have you, they make their way into neighborhoods just like here.
According to the latest data from the state, Michigan continues to see a rising trend of drug overdoses over the past several decades.
Fentanyl is the big driver of overdose deaths. So methamphetamine and fentanyl are the 2 big ones. But fentanyl, what we're seeing is it's taking the form of fake prescription pills, and that's our big concerning factor.
Fentanyl, man-made in a lab for medicinal purposes, but often misused, can be deadly in the smallest amounts and often is used by dealers to boost the high of cut drugs. So users are often not even aware they're taking it.
We've been working with a lot of families who've lost a loved one to, what we used to call overdose. And in our work with those families, we have transitioned from the word overdose to poisoning. An overdose is when you take a substance and you take too much of it and it has an effect, sometimes death. A poisoning is when you take one substance and you get another inadvertently.
While local law enforcement and first responders often have to deal with the consequences of drug use, the DEA is tasked with the considerable challenge of slowing the influx in the first place.
We work throughout the world working with our host nation partners who help us identify the major players. In addition to attacking that supply side, we're also attacking the demand side, where we will go into neighborhoods, whether it's a church or a school or some community group, and find out how are you dealing with your local drug problem, and how can we provide resources.
It's always been a challenge, and with the drugs and the game constantly changing, it probably always will be. In the meantime, a word of advice and warning from those tasked with taking on that challenge.
Let's talk about the dangers of illicit drugs. Let's talk about never ever taking a prescription pill that you didn't get from your doctor, obtained at a legitimate pharmacy for your condition. If we can have those conversations, we can stop a lot of these addictions before they begin.
And Mark is going to join us live now to kind of go a little deeper into your story. Hi, Mark. Thanks so much for joining us. So I want to start off with a question about some of the misconceptions about the DEA. For example, I think a lot of people think that DEA is Drug Enforcement Agency when it is indeed the Drug Enforcement Administration. So that's just one small example because we were talking about that earlier, because when I say some people think that, I was one of those people that thought it was the agency. So I think another misconception is the only thing that DEA officers do is they go into people's homes and they shut down drug labs and they arrest people.
Yeah.
So what do they do?
I asked Mr. McNeil, I was like, what's the big misconception? What's the thing? Because when you and I watch shows about TV newsrooms, we're like, it's not like that.
Yeah.
And I asked him, what's the big misconception? He's like, well, I think the big misconception is that the DEA are the people that just break down your doors and conduct these raids. And they do that. That is part of their responsibility. But the new Drug Enforcement Administration also does a lot of proactive work in communities to try to address the demand, to help communities so that they of course try to keep the drugs from coming in. But if you can reduce the fact that the drugs are in demand and coming into the community, that's another way. So there are an awful lot of things that the DE does besides bust down doors. And in fact, if you go to their website, there are a lot of resources posted there which actually will help educate families and loved ones about the drug issue, what drugs are out there, what drugs look like, and also how to address if you have somebody that may need help. So there are a lot of resources out there through the Drug Enforcement Administration beyond just what we would probably consider as their law enforcement element.
Mm-hmm. And one shocking thing about your story, something that Brian McNeil said is, a lot of times these drugs are being disguised as just everyday prescription pills.
Yeah. It's one of the things that the cartels are using. And they have the presses or have made pill presses that are very similar to very common prescription medication. So if you saw this, you wouldn't say, oh, that's fentanyl. Or that's heroin laced with fentanyl. That looks like an Advil, or that looks like some kind of common prescription medication. And they do that for a host of reasons, to hide from law enforcement or to make it more discreet for a user. But that obviously is terrifying, because if you take, for example, an ADHD medication or something like that, it could look like that. And you think, oh, that's just and it may not be. Now, again, prescriptions that you get from your physician, from a pharmacy, those are safe. The fentanyl's not getting into those, but it's the bait and switch, the hide and seek that the drug dealers, drug cartels are playing. It also goes to stress, and Brian made this point of how important drug take-back days are. If you can get those unused medications properly disposed of, that's helpful, especially with these fake pills, because if no, I'm done with that medication, I don't need it anymore, and it's out of my medicine cabinet, it's out of my house, that takes away a little bit of the thunder and the impact of having the fake prescription, so it wouldn't lead to confusion or anything like that.
So really, if there is a fake pill that has a stamp on it for, let's say, aspirin, and is that, like, how else can you tell that it's fake?
You would have to go back to the source, really. Like, where did you get that pill? Did you buy it from the store with a safety seal on it, or did you get that medication? We are told time and time again, don't take medication prescribed to someone else, right?
Right.
So if you got that prescription filled at a pharmacy, you can feel good about it. But don't take a pill that somebody's like, hey, I got this ADHD medication, or I got this from a friend. That's what it is. You don't know if that's what that is. Your friend doesn't even know if that's what it is. So again, Brian's last point there about take medication that is prescribed to you from a physician, that's a good way to avoid that. Don't take something that you can't trace back the roots of it from.
Anything else, Mark, that you want to mention about this story?
I mean, the overdose and the poisoning numbers, as Brian refers to them, are staggering here in northern Michigan. Even we tend to think that this is an issue that takes place somewhere else, and it doesn't. It happens right here in northern Michigan. We've done countless stories with families that are doing that. The DEA is a global organization, and a lot of these raw compounds that are used to make, in particular fentanyl, right now are coming from Asia. So there is an international and global effort to try to stop the flow. They come from Asia, China, go to Mexico, and then come up that way to these hubs like Chicago and Detroit to be administered to us. So this is an effort that impacts here in northern Michigan, but it is truly, in fact, a global effort.
Absolutely. All right, Mark, thank you so much for joining us on Unscripted today. We will see you back here next time. We are going to switch gears here. I do want to put up our question of the day one more time. So that is, has your family or someone you know lost someone to a drug overdose? 72% of people have voted yes. And while that number is not surprising, it's so heartbreaking and sad. And we got a comment from Trina that said, yes, my only brother. Sad thing is, it was prescribed by a doctor. My nephew has never been the same. Being raised without a father, I don't think they know the pain that an overdose brings a family for years to come. Trina, I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't even imagine what you and your family are going through. And it's just one thing to hear the statistics about how many people do lose their life to overdose, but then to actually hear someone's personal story and how it has heavily impacted their family. It is a very sad and heartbreaking thing. So my heart goes out to all 72% of people who voted yes on our question of the day. Now, I am going to turn things around now and go to a different story that we are working on today. And that is an event that is meant to bring law enforcement together with the community members it serves. Now, you may have heard of Coffee and Cone with a Cop, but organizers are taking this experience on the road. So our Allie Baxter, she joined them yesterday and takes us along for the ride.
Cone with the Cop, come grab an ice cream.
Families around Traverse City and Grand Traverse County getting a sweet surprise.
Reaching some of these areas that maybe aren't as notified as events that are going on.
State Police Trooper Andrew Sisko is new to the Traverse City Post Community Service role. He's been a part of outreach before with Coffee and Cone with a Cop, which usually happens at one place where the community comes to meet law enforcement. Now law enforcement is going to meet them with a trailer load of support from local businesses.
There was absolutely no hesitation. It was, what can I do to help?
So State Police and Grand Traverse Sheriff deputies loaded coolers with ice cream,
I think there's 3.
turned on the lights, and let the sirens blare to get the neighborhood's attention.
You know, maybe make somebody's day a little bit brighter.
When kids and parents came outside, they weren't just greeted by law enforcement, but some familiar faces too.
My spouse is a teacher here within the TCAP school system, so she was able to reach out to some of those co-workers, some of those social workers that provided a friendly face, because at the end of the day, it's still, you know, lights and sirens blaring and patrol cars. You could see the hesitation through the windows, but I believe those familiar faces made it a little bit smoother.
Smiles lit up faces for a cool treat during a hot evening.
One little boy coming up on his bicycle and overjoyed to begin with that he got a free ice cream, but to also explain that it was his 7th birthday, that he, you know, can go to bed tonight knowing that his day was maybe a little bit extra special.
And that's what Trooper Sisko says motivates these troopers, deputies, and sheriff to meet the community where they are.
Being in a law enforcement role, sometimes there's not positive interactions that occur, you know, and I'm not necessarily with the children themselves, but they see what maybe we do to a older loved one or have to take an older loved one away. And this is just an idea to show them that, you know, at the end of the day, we are still here. We're here to serve you. We are here to help you.
In Grand Traverse County, Allie Baxter, UpNorthLive News.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk some weather with our meteorologist, Joe. It was a lovely day today, and you said that we have a few more lovely days in store for us here in northern Michigan.
Yeah, this is the first of 4, Maya. So
Okay.
Monday might not even be that bad either. Coming up here. By the way, we're in our last week here of July. Can you believe that?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, when you think about it, though, just how fast summer's flying by.
I cannot believe that.
My grandma would always say,
that.
my grandma, when she was in her 80s, she's like, wait till you get my age, how fast the summers go by. I remember her telling me that, but it seems like every year they zip by.
Yep.
But we do have some nice weather out there tonight, Maya. Let's take a little closer look at that. Here's our satellite picture around northern Michigan. Just a couple of clouds, that's it. And none of these are bringing in any rain. We'll expand the view out to the west. And here's what that looks like. I mean, you have to get way out to Montana and Wyoming, Colorado to see any rain. And that's, 1,000 or more miles away. So it's going to be a little while until we get any rain in here. Probably, again, not until Monday, our next chance. Here's our look at the weather map tonight. All our fronts drawn in, the surface map, at least the surface features. And look at that big H right over Lake Michigan. That's keeping our weather nice and pleasant, and this will kind of just slowly meander across the region tomorrow. And then as we get into the weekend, it'll set up some nice weather too. A little bit of a warm-up as that moves away behind this high. We'll get a south wind. This is what it looks like right now. There's tonight, stormcast tomorrow, dry weather, maybe a cloud or two, that's it. And, the same thing heading into the start of the weekend. There's Saturday. We'll stop the clock. 11:30 in the morning, Saturday. Nice day. Let's notice the arrows there, the green arrows. That's the wind direction out of the south. And then Sunday, still dry. Just a few clouds rolling in Sunday afternoon. We'll call it partly cloudy. So just a look at the weekend. Look at that. Saturday, sunshine all day long. Great beach day, whatever you have going on. 80s. Sunday, mid and upper 80s, partly cloudy and pretty warm. Meanwhile, off to the west, it's hot. Look at these temperatures right now. You ever been to Rapid City, Maya?
I have not, no.
Yeah, maybe not this time of year.
Jeez.
It's 107 there in South Dakota. That's current reading. We're going to stay in that, as we look at the jet stream here, you see northern Michigan. We're going to stay on the mild end of things. I don't think we're definitely not going to get that hot. But we'll stay in the 80s, the cooler weather locked up way up in northern Canada. And so, looking long-term here, yeah, pretty nice. Temperatures in the 80s moving ahead here. Quick couple events. Let's take a look. The Sawville River Canoe Marathon in Grayling, 80s, both Friday and Saturday. Venetian Festival in Charlevoix, 77 and 82, sunny skies. And we have the Brown Trout Festival in Alpena, which you attended, Maya. You were there a few days ago, 80s. Great weather and the extended forecast. Again, it stays warm right through next week. Next chance for a couple drops of rain. It doesn't look like until Monday will be the next chance for some of that.
Nice. So a good weekend to get outside.
Absolutely. Just keep the sunscreen close by.
In the water, yes.
All right.
All right, thanks, Joe. We're going to take a quick break here on UpNorthLive Unscripted, but we'll be back in a few minutes with our sports director, Harrison Beebe. We'll see what he's up to today. Stick with us. Welcome back to Unscripted, everyone. Let's turn things over to our sports director, Harrison Beebe, who is live in a pretty familiar place. Go out there tonight. You have a great stadium.
Yeah, Maya, you probably feel like you've been here by now, seeing this background enough. Yeah, back. It's been a week off from the Pittsburghers. They had the Northwoods League All-Star break on Tuesday, so most of these guys haven't played a game for 3-4 days here, except Jaden Dentler. He's the ace of the staff. He was in the All-Star game the other day. A Great Lakes win over the Great Plains, so take that, Great Plains State.
Nice.
Got that over you. So final few weeks here, the regular season for the Pittsburghers start tonight with a home game against the Kalamazoo Growlers.
And where are the Pittsburghers at in terms of like postseason play?
So they're still on the outs looking in, but they played better here in the second half. So they're in that mix if they can be one of the top teams in that division, because the Rockford Rivets clinched that first half division, if you recall that scenario. So if the Pittsburghers can play well down the stretch, they would lock up the other playoff spot, which would be a Great Lakes team to get in mid-August here. So certainly intriguing baseball at the very least.
Mm-hmm. And what else is going on in the sports world today, Harrison?
Well, we teased it yesterday when we were at the river. A very cool story we did for the Jimmy John Sports Corner this week of the Trebold family. It's 3 generations are going to all be in the marathon this weekend. That's the grandpa, Turbo Tim Trebold. I asked him how he got that nickname. He got it in a race in Hawaii, believe it or not. But he's racing with a friend of his, a younger lady who's hopefully going to keep it competitive. His son is racing with his 15-year-old daughter, Tim's 15-year-old granddaughter. So we talked yesterday about the 15-year-old competing in the race, and her brother, Owen, is also competing in the race with a friend of his. They both just graduated from Grayling. So we don't know if it's the first time 3 generations have done one race of the Osaba River Canoe Marathon, but that's got to be pretty rare if it's ever happened. So I kind of joked, you all are going to plot out times to meet up on the river, and they said, well, we would like to do pretty well too. It's not just like a float down the river family excursion,
right?
Although it kind of seems that way with all of them being involved in it.
Yeah. So 3 generations, but 4 family members.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
So that's a pretty unique tie, and that's what we like. When I cover that event every year in the time trials to get ready for it, I like to find those interesting stories that are like, you don't really know how unique this is and what different types of people, brothers, sisters, long lost cousins are teaming up to take part in stuff like this.
That's a great story, Harrison. And in case you missed it in our 6 o'clock newscast, you can watch it tonight on Up North Live News at 11 in his Jimmy John Sports Corner. All right, Harrison, we will see you later tonight, but we're going to take another quick break and Unscripted. We'll be back in a few minutes. Our question of the day today is, has your family or someone you know lost someone to a drug overdose? 73% of people said yes, 27% said no. In case you missed it, Mark Gillette sat down with a member of the DEA to talk about how they are battling this crisis on the front lines. You can watch that on our website, UpNorthLive.com. That is all for Up North Live Unscripted. Take care, everyone.